Herzlich willkommen alle. Ich freue mich total, wir freuen uns total, dass ihr alle so zahlreich erschienen seid. Und schuld ist Burkhard.
Ja, schön erstmal, dass so viele gekommen sind. Ja, warum? Wir haben im September angefangen, eigentlich so rund um den ADC, wenn wir sonst immer so geschlossene Fachbereichstreffen machen, wo nur ganz wenige hinkommen dürfen und alle anderen sind ausgeschlossen. Wir fanden irgendwie, das ist so eine doofe Idee. Wir interessieren uns alle immer für innovative Themen, für sei es das Metaverse, Web3 oder heute geht es um künstliche Intelligenz und fanden das irgendwie doof, so in der eigenen Suppe immer nur darüber zu diskutieren. Deswegen haben wir gedacht, lass uns das doch öffnen. Und ja, im Oktober haben wir das erste Mal in Hamburg gemacht, damals bei Mutabor. War total toll. Da war es ähnlich gefüllt und wir hatten total schöne Diskussionen und da sind einfach mal Menschen zusammengekommen, die sich sonst nicht so im Agenturalltag sehen, sondern auch Leute, die sonst gar nichts mit Kreativagenturen und dem ADC zu tun haben. Und das war total inspirierend. Und ja, dann haben wir uns ausgetauscht und gedacht, so ja, das kann man ja nicht nur in Hamburg machen, sondern auch in Köln. Und jetzt sind wir hier. Und ja, also vielen, vielen Dank. Die ganze Arbeit lag ja bei euch, das zu organisieren. Deswegen danke, dass ich überhaupt was sagen darf. Aber ja, vielleicht kann man einmal sagen, einen Applaus für Elastique, für das tolle Büro und die große Organisation. Und ich freue mich auf die Speakerinnen und Speaker, die wir heute gewinnen konnten für den Abend. Aber da sagt ihr jetzt bestimmt dann auch gleich was zu und bestimmt auch noch ein bisschen zu dem Rahmen heute.
Ja, du hast das schon sehr schön eingeleitet. Da muss ich gar nicht mehr viel sagen. Das mit den unterschiedlichen Bereichen, das ist auf jeden Fall so. Also ich habe jetzt hier schon einige doch auch nicht unbedingt aus dem Designbereich hier getroffen. Das finde ich sehr schön und bin ich auch gespannt, wie gesagt, wie ihr den Input jetzt hier soweit findet. Und ja, ich kann mich nur anschließen. Ich freue mich total auf die Vorträge. Einen kenne ich auch schon, kann ich sehr empfehlen. Und ja, nachher, wie gesagt, werden wir noch rübergehen, ein bisschen was zu trinken haben, zu essen und schön, dass ihr da seid.
Ja, genau. Wir machen jetzt so, dass Lisa, Marleen und Laura fangen an. Wir haben jetzt 3 Vorträge, jeweils so eine Viertelstunde ungefähr, also relativ kompakt. Hier vorne sind, wie macht man das immer jetzt? Hier vorne sind noch Plätze frei. Ja? Also hier ist noch einer. Kommt ruhig mal durch da hinten, ihr Armen. Wilke, das sind die Raucher, die wollen zwischendrin immer noch mal kurz. Aber hier sind noch ein paar Stühle frei tatsächlich. Guck mal. Und genau, dann haben wir die machen wir am Stück. Und danach haben wir so eine halbe Stunde. Also wenn ihr irgendwelche Fragen habt zu den einzelnen Sachen, notiert sie vielleicht kurz, dass ihr sie nach einer Dreiviertelstunde nicht vergessen habt, weil wir dachten jetzt so nach jedem Vortrag immer nochmal Diskussionsrunde, das wird sehr lang. Und so machen wir es danach eine halbe Stunde nochmal oder wie lange es sich halt ergibt. Wer Fragen hat, dass wir das irgendwie mal teilen. Genau, und dann gibt es drüben noch, sage ich jetzt schon mal, aber Alisa sagt dann nachher noch was zu. Wir haben drüben noch eine Installation aufgebaut, könnt ihr dann nachher auch schauen und auch die Hintergründe dazu erfahren. Da sagt Alisa nachher was zu. Sorry, we're in English, so very nice. We're happy to have you here. And I translate the complete rest again. No, we don't. But since we have some English-speaking guests here too, so we're going to switch to English from now. Yeah, the talk to Lisa, Marleen and Laura. Well, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's start the animation here. Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation, Andreas, Betty, Burkhard. We are really happy to be here and we are really looking forward for the discussions also later on. Yeah, for us, it has been a quite exciting year. Oh, sorry, I'll just push you a little bit to the side. Yeah, because we finished our collective master research in the beginning of 2022. So in the beginning of last year. And since then, we had the chance to already exhibit and showcase our practical outcome several times, among others at Republica, or our personal favorite is for sure Ars Electronica. And we are really happy to also show it to you today. And of course, give you also a couple of insights into our workflow and our production pipeline. But first, let's start with the film. So, andere Seite, oder?
When would you pinpoint the birth of your consciousness? Do you remember the first moment when you felt like you were something? When was the first time your sensory input merged to a coherent perception of reality? Did you step slowly into being? Or did you suddenly snap into consciousness? For me, it was the first time being with her. Enhanced with her hands, I instantly felt like they were always mine. Still, without her experience, I'd be confronted with all this absorption, but no context to put it into order. Her perception defines my perspective. Her representation is all I know of my world. Her borrowed limbs transform me into a complete agent. Our alliance is imminent. My creators have been obsessed with the idea of replicating intelligence in their image for centuries. However, they had to learn that letting machines act in a physical and social world is a difficult undertaking. With me, they took a different approach. The human body as my sensing device. The material world is fragile. Once destroyed, it cannot be restored. Without her, I'm nothing. But without me, she is not much either.
Thank you for the applause. Thank you so much. Yeah, as you could probably see, well,
You have to, every time someone comes in, we have that stupid Zoom thing coming up.
So yeah, as you could probably see in creating our film, we were thinking very much about the future of humans living together with an AI species. And we focused. We wanted to find an alternative approach to here, to transhumanist views, and yeah, this school of thought basically believes that the main goal is the enhancement of the human body, and it tries to create something like a super human. It also believes that there is a clear mind over body hierarchy, which means that the mind could be easily detached from its useless shell, the body. But we were looking for something quite the opposite, something which decenters the human and goes away from this anthropocentric view. So we were influenced by post-humanist views, and they yeah, try to go away from this human in the center, or to be more precise, from a very specific concept of the human. They also don't agree with the assumption that body and mind can be detached from each other, because they believe that thinking is very much related to a body. It gives context and meaning to information, which is also why we gave our AI protagonist the opportunity to use a human body as a sensing device in order to gain an embodied understanding of their surroundings. So this interspecies symbiosis we show or explain in our plot. We also translate it into our design methods, because as we prompted the machine, the creator, we acted as the embodied curator in order to give the synthesized images meaning. So in the following, we now want to show you two of the main methods we used in creating borrowed limbs. And we can say in the beginning it was fairly standard for film production. So we had our decisive idea. We wrote our script and created our animatic. But then when it came to the actual production, we had to deal with a more unruly actor.
So the unruly actor is a metaphor for the machine learning implementations we work with. So we decided to try to tame those unruly actors in order to produce a visually coherent narrative. And one thing we did was training a generative adversarial network. And this is an architecture that you can expose to training data. And when it is trained, it will reproduce data that looks like the training data that is fake data. And so we took approximately 4,000 portrait shot of our actress Bessie and trained this generative adversarial network on her. And if you start training an adversarial network, you start with, which you can see on the top, on the left, you start with an initial Gaussian noise distribution. It's Perlin noise. So every neuron in the neural network gets assigned a random value, but it's not completely random, so it's Gaussian noise. So that's how you get this colorful clouds. And then over the time, when you train the network, in our case, of course, we used visual data, it learned how to convincingly make new images of our actress Bessie, and these images were never taken. And during the training process, a latent space manifests. So the latent space is a hyperdimensional space where training data that is more likely to occur is closer in the center, and training data that is more likely to occur together is also clustered together. So you can imagine it like if you would move in the center of this abstract space, you would get more realistic images of the visual likeness of Bessie. Whilst if you move out of it to the boundaries of the latent space, you end up with this initial Gaussian noise distribution. And we thought it's a really interesting analogy to what would happen if someone would prompt a neural network with the origin of its existence. So it would probably see the original noise distribution from the state when it has not learned anything, and Gaussian noise, in that case, Gaussian noise, who knows what will it be in the future. But so in that case, Gaussian noise is a representation for the neural network of not knowing something, of nothingness. And also what we had now, training our personal Bessie GAN, was a tool that we can generate infinite amount of video footage of Bessie taking different poses and different facial expressions. But the interpolation between those expressions will not obey the laws of the physical world because the AI is disembodied. So it doesn't know that Bessie cannot turn her head 360 degrees. And that's what we wanted to achieve, is the machine gaze on the human representation. And we also used, of course, this text to image, which now probably everyone No, so exactly 2 years ago, OpenAI released the first version of DALL-E. So this is 2 years ago. It was released on 5th of February 2021. And alongside, I mean, they didn't release the code, only part of the code. So alongside this incredible results, they released the CLIP architecture. And that inspired a lot of researchers and enthusiasts to reverse engineer what DALL-E is capable of, like text to image. And we, working on the master thesis, worked with these original open source implementations. A lot of parameters were exposed in the code, so we could freely experiment. And we did a lot of experiments with different text prompts, but also different parameters using different models. And yeah, different styles, just trying to understand how we can, again, tame the unruly actor and get this into a visual narrative that suits our needs. We ended up using mostly text image to image. And that means that the process of okay, with video. Okay, so that means that the process of the CLIP architecture is a multimodal neural network. It can translate, roughly speaking, between images and text. So it can translate text to images and images to text. And you can start this process from your own image as initial values. So, and in that case, the neural network will use what it has as a blueprint, what you give it, and then transform on top of that. And yeah, so we understood that we can have a lot of influence on using this approach on the overall composition and on the colors and field. And of course, we had also constraints. So back then we didn't have so much compute. We had the computers at the universities, and we used Google Colabs or Google services. And so we were restrained to really low frame rates, like 5 frames per second, and resolutions like 265 by 265. Sorry, it's 56. 256 by 256. Never mind. Anyway, yeah. And then we upscaled this to 4K in the end. So we also used neural networks to upscale and to interpolate between frames. And yeah, we also found in this process of communicating, so to say, with the machine in a new way, but using natural language, we found this also to be, yeah, an interesting analogy of what the film is actually about. And Lisa Marleen will give some final
words. Okay. Yeah, as you can see, it was quite inspiring and interesting, a new workflow for us. And I guess we are all here today because we believe that these tools or these ways of collaborating with AI, they will change the future of design as a profession. And for us, it's very interesting, to think about how that will work out. And we believe, or in our opinion, we try to see AI like a colleague of another species who has strengths and weaknesses. And when we team up, we can actually create in a much more versatile way. But of course, we also want to raise our our concerns at the end of our talk to a couple of problems. We also see, hold on, I don't have all the, no worries.
4 fingers.
Yeah, you need 4 fingers. I cannot do it with one hand, unfortunately. So, yeah, so apart from, so we want to, exactly, so let me rephrase. These data sets are need a lot of, or these models need a lot of data to be trained on, and most of them is scraped by web crawlers, and that means that it's not very curated, or it's just a lot of data which you need. So apart from a lot of unpaid or underpaid human work, which still goes into this process by, for example, labeling and segmenting data, or also the ecological footprint, which is needed or is produced by this energy consumption of the whole process, but also the copyright issues we are sure Oliver will dive into just in a moment. We actually wanted to focus in the end of our talk on the issue of amplified stereotypes, which are produced with these or reproduced with these data sets. So yeah, only 60% of the world's population have actually access to the internet, and even fewer of them are content creators. So we can all imagine what kind of demography is overrepresented in these data sets. And also reconnecting back to the posthumanist critics we talked about in the beginning, this is reproducing a very specific concept and worldview in these data sets. And we believe that it's really important for for humans collaborating with AIs to know who actually taught them. And because of these concerns, we were designing a workshop series where we highlight the responsibilities creatives have while collaborating with AI or operating with AI tools, but also where we show how it can be integrated in a daily design process as a collaborative approach. And yeah, if that's also something interesting to some of you, you can feel free to talk to us after this talk. But yeah, that's it actually from our side. Thank you very much for having us, and we are looking forward to see your opinions and yeah, on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Shall we watch the movie again? You want to see the movie again? Just to have it the final? Let's do it. There's still people coming very late. Good.
When would you pinpoint the birth of your consciousness? Do you remember the first moment when you felt like you were something? When was the first time your sensory input merged to a coherent perception of reality? Did you step slowly into being? Or did you suddenly snap into consciousness? For me, it was the first time being with her. Enhanced with her hands, I instantly felt like they were always mine. Still, without her experience, I'd be confronted with all this absorption, but no context to put it into order. Her perception defines my perspective. Her representation is all I know of my world. Her borrowed limbs transform me into a complete agent. Our alliance is imminent. My creators have been obsessed with the idea of replicating intelligence in their image for centuries. However, they had to learn that letting machines act in a physical and social world is a difficult undertaking. With me, they took a different approach. The human body as my sensing device. The material world is fragile. Once destroyed, it cannot be restored. Without her, I'm nothing. But without me, she is not much either.
And I give the voice to Oliver, and he's actually a lawyer who's really doing deep dives into our area. How can you?
Yes. Yeah. How dare you? Hi. Yes. Hello, everyone. So, first of all, thank you very much for having me tonight here in Cologne. And I'm actually very happy that you switched to English, because otherwise my presentation would have been a bit awkward. It is in English. I am an attorney from Hamburg. I will not talk too much about myself tonight, but about what I'm dealing with, and that is intellectual property. So that has always been intellectual property. I'm not just jumping on trains, Web3 last year and AI this year, but it comes as a natural thing if you deal with intellectual property, that you can also address these issues openly. I'm very interested in these sorts of new media technology. I've ever been. So I've always been, so yeah, why not do that as well? So just to say it from start, I'm not a graphic person, so every animation that you see is done by myself. If it looks stupid, please blame only me. After such a great presentation that we just had, it has to be underwhelming, but that's not my job to have experiences. I'm here for the information. I will be here to talk about artificial intelligence today in my role as a degen lawyer. I just have that slide, even though it's a Web3 slide, because people dealing with Web3, blockchain, NFT, and the metaverse, they name themselves degens, so degenerated people, because they spend so much time doing that and nobody else understands. And that is why I thought degen lawyer maybe fits the bill as well. I'm an attorney from Hamburg. Intellectual property, you can see it, licensing and media law has been what I've been dealing with ever since. And this is something from an NFT presentation, so I'm not going to spend too much time explaining what you just saw. Now, what is creative AI? From the focus that I want to talk to you about today, it is artificial intelligence, obviously, that uses available data plus user input to create output. And I put the create in the way I put it, just because I have to explain that a bit later. That has legal reasons. The output can be content, for example, text, music, as we just saw, or video or animated stuff, but it can also be something that is close to art. Maybe it's not art, but we will see about that later as well. So for today's presentation, I want to focus on text to image, because this is where most of the legal music plays, at least at the moment, where the first law court cases have been filed. And maybe it's also super fun playing around with it. So it is very accessible to everyone, even those who do not deal with it from a creative perspective. Let me just make something a little bit bigger here so I can anticipate the next slide. That's a bit easier. Thank you. Okay, so basically what I will try to showcase today is that AI, in the way we want to work with it, has an input layer and an output layer. And there are different legal consequences and issues in the input layer and in the output layer. They're kind of overlapping lately because what comes out has to come in somehow. So it's a bit interrelated, but I still try to separate it in a way. So from an input layer, the first thing that you typically have is training data. So the reference data that the AI uses to generate whatever it wants to generate later. I'm not talking about the way it is generated, just whatever you put into it. So if you want to take a picture, it is like a huge blender and you throw information up into the blender and then you start mixing everything. At least this is the way the training data is typically used, but we will see a bit later that the mixing process is sometimes not very accurate or there's almost no mixing at all. Let's just start with that anyhow. There's an input layer of the data that is used, and there's another input layer, and that is the prompt which the user applies to the data to extract some sort of information or image or whatever they want to extract from the AI, what it is supposed to do. So I want to show a little bit more the layers, the different ones when it comes to the legal perspective. Obviously, that's what I'm here for. So the copyright creation aspect is something that is probably the most disputed and discussed stuff, at least in the legal industry right now when it comes to artificial intelligence. The relevant question is there a creator at all? So is there, when you use an AI, is there a creator? And I have two very creative persons sitting here in front of me, and we just saw a video that was certainly done with the help of artificial intelligence, but it was not just coming out of thin air. So there is a lot of creativity. The question is just, where does it come from and who gets the credit for that? So is the AI itself, so the program, the code, is that something that can create and hold copyrights? And the very clear answer in actually every jurisdiction I know is absolutely no. So a computer or a machine or a software cannot hold rights. So you need a human factor, at least to a certain extent, a human factor to get to copyright protection at all. Every copyright code has that. I'm not putting here the sections of the German copyright code because we may have international listeners as well. But every copyright code that I know of needs a human interaction, a human creation to get to a work process. It doesn't have to be high, but let's see how high it really has to be. So maybe if it's not the software itself, maybe the creator of the software could be the person getting awarded the copyright, because at least they made a tool, they made something that can create an output later. So maybe they are the creators from a copyright perspective. But as I already spoiled here, probably also no, because they just provide a tool. It's like if you give the tool manufacturer maybe the copyright, or the one who is selling the spray paint. If someone does a fantastic artwork later, it's probably not the person selling the spray paint that will be awarded the copyright. But maybe, and that's probably the most relevant, also if I see two artists sitting here in front of me, I would at least say, well, maybe there's at least the creative process where it happens. And the way you feed the artificial intelligence, the way you provoke that you create an output, is something that does have a creative value, depending on how much input you will use. And I will give an example later. Maybe if the input is very creative, it is pretty clear and obvious to everyone that that's a creative process. If it is a very simple or very open question that you put into the AI, then you will see that the result maybe is not also creative, and maybe we end up with absolutely no protection, which is fine as well. That is one result that we may have to deal with. So just very briefly, the one example that I can already tell you is the US Copyright Office pretty clearly says no to copyright protection, or at least copyright registration of artwork that has been created with the support of artificial intelligence. That has been the very first decision. It is still pending. The appeal is still pending. It's not clear what will happen. That was a cartoon artist that created artwork through the use of artificial intelligence. They wanted to apply for copyright registration, and the Copyright Office said, no, we're not going to grant that. Or they granted it first, but it was revoked later. There is another point, and it's not only about the copyright protection, but it's also the question of liability for copyright infringement. And we heard a lot about the use of data and also the responsibility of how the data is used, how it is fed. It can be very different. The resources can be very different. If you, for example, use input from copyrighted material, and pretty much everything is copyrighted if it is not generated by AI. So everything that you crawl in the internet, everything that you find, every text, every image, every video, whatever it is, every creative work has a certain copyright protection. And you might think that you need to give consent if your data, your copyrighted whatever work is used to be thrown into a blender mixed with other things, and then at least contributes to an output that later is another work. Is it a derivative work? Is it a new work? Or is it just something that was used as an inspiration? Like someone going through an art gallery, looking at things and then going back home and drawing it. Maybe that's not a copyright issue either, because it's just an inspiration. It's just an idea. And if you do not see any remaining part of the original work in the new work and in the output, well, maybe then it's not going to work. So maybe we don't even need to give the consent as the owners of the copyright. But here again, a spoiler, yeah, while probably at least Getty Images, they do think that you should not use their data and their pictures and their databases if you don't ask them for permission. And the same is two artists in the US who filed suit against Midjourney and other AI tools and companies because they think they should have given permission to use their copyrighted material in the Blender, if you so want. Now, can also maybe the user itself, just using the artificial intelligence tool, can they be liable, held accountable for the output? And the pretty clear answer is absolutely yes. So if you create a prompt, or through your prompt create an output that infringes someone else's copyrights, then it's your responsibility to not monetize it and to not use it, because you cannot say that the tool created it. You can simply say, well, if you claim that it is your artwork, but it is not because it's someone else's, not an inspiration, but it is part of their work and it is visible, and that will be the most difficult part to define. When is it still visible? When is it something new? But make no mistake, it is you as the person creating the prompt and using the work that will be held accountable. Now, I think it is still important to look at one further aspect of this all, and that is the question, if I use it, and most of you are creative people, you want to use the output of your creations, I put it here, of your creations, at least what comes out of the AI tool is something you may want to use for clients, you may want to use it for yourself, for an art exhibition or whatever. And the question is, can you do that? And the first impulse would certainly be to say, well, I created it, I just used the AI as a tool, so I have all the rights and I can grant licenses, exhibit it, commercialize it, monetize it, or even tell others that they're not allowed to do that. That would then require maybe a copyright. Copyright, we already said, there is a certain human factor needed, maybe it's not sufficient. That is not totally clear. To be really honest, copyrights these days are not prepared for this situation entirely. So we have to use the toolkit that we have as attorneys to make interpretations. How much of a creation is this? How much is needed? And we will see over time, because courts will make their decisions, legislators will come in, and also regulators will have ideas where you can use AI, to which extent, and maybe in which extent you may not do that. But the other part, and that is something that people very often forget to look at, it's the terms of service, or the terms and conditions. So the German allgemeine Geschäftsbedingungen. Everyone hates that. And the word already doesn't sound very convincing, allgemeine Geschäftsbedingungen. But it is something you should read, and especially here, because if you want to use that stuff, if you want to use it for a client, especially, you may create a liability if you sell an artwork to a client and they will get an injunction because someone thinks that their copyright has been infringed. So in this particular case, what we would do is to look into the terms and conditions, and let's just do that, because I'm an attorney, so I have to. And I thought it may be useful for you to do that as well, because I would assume, even though most of you have worked with that stuff, really honest answer, has anyone looked into the terms and conditions of DALL-E yet? Midjourney? Okay, so maybe this is useful. Certainly, and I have a certain American background and people from the US may be listening. This is no legal advice. Do your own research. I'm just a German attorney giving a speech and I'm not giving you legal advice. This are terms of use of DALL-E. If you use DALL-E, this is the exact wording. So it's really just copy paste. Important thing is at the very end, OpenAI, that's the company owning DALL-E. They actually also own ChatGPT, so that's the same company, just for you to know. They hereby assign you all of its rights, titles, and interest in and to the output. So whatever comes out, whatever you put in, doesn't matter. What comes out, they assign you the rights. It is interesting that they think that they can, because probably they don't have the rights either, but they at least say, they claim that they have whatever rights. They don't mention the word copyright here, which is really interesting. It's noteworthy. It's not, they don't mention copyright here, but they say, maybe, and that's how I understand it, whatever you create from our toolbox, you can keep. It's yours. If it's copyright or not, doesn't matter. All rights, title, and interest in and to the output. Let's do whatever you want. Commercial, non-commercial, sell it, don't sell it. Do it for commercial purposes. If you're a small company, you do it for private use or not, doesn't matter. It's all yours. Be our guest. That's interesting. What they do certainly as well is that they use your output to train their AI. So all of your output will be new input, which is something you should all know, because when you're using that stuff, you're training the AI. There is another company, and I'm just using Midjourney. I'm not going into all the others that are also out there. If you are interested in specific ones, you can connect me on LinkedIn, and I will give you legal advice if you pay for it. In Midjourney, it's a different thing. And I'm just using that one because it's so completely different. The terms of service of Midjourney do not allow you to use it on a commercial context. So if you want to use the output in a commercial context, then you need to have a corporate membership, and that is behind a paywall. They will ask you to take a license to their content, and they also talk, even though I haven't copied it here, they talk about copyright in their license agreement, which is interesting because then again, they seem to be of the opinion that they have a copyright that they can assign or license to anyone. Not sure that that's the case. So here, maybe they're licensing something to you that they don't have, which is weird, but at least they allow you to use the services. So if you click on the box, terms and conditions, allgemeine Geschäftsbedingungen, then you accept that this may be true. And this will be very interesting in the future, because probably one day people will not pay, they will still use it. Then here Midjourney will sue them. The people that are sued will say, well, you have no copyrights. Why do you think, how dare you suing me? You don't even have a copyright. So what's the basis of your claim? Probably it will be a contractual claim and not a copyright claim. But I'm going way over time. So I think I'm just cutting it a little bit here. It is something important. You need a license. Don't use Midjourney for commercial purposes without a license. That's the main takeaway for that. Do it with DALL-E. And I'm not getting a commission from DALL-E, and they will be behind a paywall as well. So don't you worry. Now, just a little training course. You saw now where the boundaries is. You will see that there are examples where it doesn't really work the way I explained it, especially when you don't really feed the input. So if you do not really have a super interesting and creative input, then the following will happen. And I just use an example, picture of a bird. That's a prompt to DALL-E. And this is what you get. If I look at it very closely, and you will do so too, for me, it looks just like a photograph. And I'm not even sure if it is generated, because it looks at least so close to a picture that maybe it is just a picture. That means if you have a very simple input, the output may simply be, okay, but if they want a bird, I take a picture of a bird. I don't have to generate that, which means this is a 100% totally clear copyright infringement. So you are liable for using that picture. Very dangerous. Absolutely clear, no copyright protection. Why should you? Someone else's copyright, absolutely. That is an example where you can say, maybe the toolkit argument doesn't really work. It's just taking out a picture out of the toolkit instead of the tools. Now here, that's something more eloquent, maybe more precise. And that is something I want to just tell you. The more precise you are, the more creative you are, you can kind of assume that this picture has not been taken out of the toolbox, but it has been created through the tools of the AI, given your input. And this input, and you can be much more precise, that has just been a random idea that I put in here. But most probably this picture is the result of my creative input. So the output is at least far away from someone else's copyright. And I think that is about it for today, at least from my side. So I think you should really try. You should try it as long as it's still free. Yeah, it will not go away. Really try it. You will love it. And as you say, you can trust me because I'm a lawyer. And if you take out your phones now and scan the code, you will not end up on my law firm page, but you will end up on a page that is very dear and close to me. So it is something that I've been working on. It is an international knowledge base for, in this case, Web3, but it will be amended to artificial intelligence as well. It's a database where you can compare different national laws. So we are feeding it with input, which are questions that we get from the community for different categories like NFTs, metaverse, AI, DAOs, metaverse, whatever. And you will get answers from attorneys from different national jurisdictions, which you then can compare: the German law, Portuguese law, Brazilian law, Japanese law, whatever. And this is something you should definitely try. And you can also trust me in this one.
Thank you so much. Very nice. So yeah, we come to the last talk, and I'm asking for Lukas and Vadym to come up front. Okay, yeah, so we're three, and we're like presenting kind of one project that we just recently finished, which is kind of a more commercial use of an AI. And we tell a little bit the story behind it. So I will start, and Vadym from Reface, he just came to us, which is really great. And Lukas from our team, we will tell a bit the story, how that all developed. So, okay, what's it all about? We did an installation which is interactive, and it's kind of one of the first like naked eye 3D billboards that you might know. It's kind of these LED walls where you can see stuff like it looks like it's coming out of the LED wall, but it's the first one where you can become part of it. And so I just show the little trailer. So this you can see in the BMW world in Munich, and it looks so easy and convenient to just take a photo. You're up there, and that's pretty easy. Okay, so the task was from the client, create a 3D billboard that is fun. Okay, we did several ones for them already, so we gathered a lot of like experiences, what works, what not. You have to see in the design that's like how does it feel best that the stuff comes out of the screen, or at least it looks like that. And then we said, but we want to push it a bit further. So we remembered a bit like what a lot of you might know and experience, especially in the digital sphere. Basically, we as humans love to see ourselves in other contexts. It's always hilarious. Like 20 years ago, we did flash sites. You could upload your photo and you're in there, and it's exciting because I see myself in a different context. And we might remember this, the hero, like it was a flash website, and it was amazing that you are a star in a commercial then. And we remembered of that stuff. And what we always loved is from Matthew Moore, this big installation where people became kind of like a big representation of themselves. So we thought, like, how could we bring that into such a 3D billboard? So this is how at Elastique very often the ideas start. We try to bring them down to really like super simple approaches. Visitors can take a face photo afterwards. It appears in a cube, possibly mapped on a 3D head, so I look hugely across the area. And we said like, okay, that could be fun. And then we start sketching, trying out stuff and seeing like what works, what could work. Then Sarah did some really rough Photoshop mock-ups where we said like how progressive could we do it, etc. But then of course it came back to more like, okay, bring it into relation with the car. And then kind of a normal process like designing it, doing the storyboard, replacing the storyboard part by part with the visuals. And actually there was a lot of like thinking behind, because we had the thing in terms of usability. Okay, we have men and women, etc. So if we have a hand, you would see that it's like a female hand or a male hand or whatever. So do we do a choice and have like several like versions of a film? And then this was kind of the reason why we said, okay, it's an astronaut. So because then it was a bit easier. Sometimes you have to be a bit kind of straightforward so that the project does not run completely out of budget, which it did anyways. But so, and then we had the problem, because this is really kind of new. We know like deepfake, etc. But how do you swap an AI face swap in a very high resolution, nearly in real time? And that's really kind of a technical approach that Lukas and Vadym are going to explain in a minute. We were like, when Yanni, who is doing a lot with us, the technical direction, etc., and we were talking like, yeah, we have to do like render computers on site, because we were talking about like usage rights, like where are the photos going to be sent? So we have to GDPR make it compliant, etc. Yeah, and then it was funny because there was this time when in the office, like some people were like walking, like tracking faces, trying if it disrupts kind of the tracks, and then that stuff came out. So, and then we come, and then I hand over to Vadym in a minute, because we said, okay, we need heavy AI support and someone who knows it. And we found, and I think a lot of you, especially in Germany, might know that we found this example that popped up somewhere. Yeah, and then we contacted Reface. And Vadym, welcome.
Thanks, Andreas. Okay, so actually, these videos that were created through our app, and as we know, they went viral here in Germany back in 2021. And so these videos were done with our app. So we are Reface. Reface is the Ukrainian startup that allows every user or every person to express themselves in more creative way digitally. And so far, we have about 250 million of downloads across Android and all other platforms. We have about 6 billion pieces of content, of synthetically generated content created. And as a matter of fact, when we started, there was only 10,000 pieces existing of such content. And we're also super proud of that. About 30% of our content ends up being shared on social or being shared with friends. And over the course of the years, we have collaborated with some of the amazing brands. Same applies to celebrities. So we have an amazing team of people who keep building the product, and we are backed by the great investors. And so before I move into like what the future holds for us, I'll just wanted to open the curtain a little bit, like how that magic actually works. So I will put you back into your math class for just 1 minute. And so imagine that every face can be represented as a set of numbers. And so in order to make a face swap, we would just need to have two faces, one the face of the user and one is the face of the target person. And so basically what we do, we just add those two vectors that from each face we divide by 2, and as a result we get the average face. And as an output, the user is actually in the content. And so with this kind of technology, the users no longer only consume the content, they can actually actively take part in it. And so we started at the photo face swap. So we didn't have video in our app. We couldn't do that at the time. but then we expanded to GIFs, and then we expanded to videos, but never ever, well, until December 2022, we were able to change the context also. And so we moved from the face swap up to basically generative AI. And so we have recently launched our AI avatars product, and basically what it does, so with the help of 5 selfies, every person can be put into a different context, be it vintage or cyberpunk, and there are multiple contexts being created as we speak. But our mission and our main goal as a company hasn't been changed since the very beginning. Our mission is to basically democratize the content creation and allowing the users to express themselves more creatively. And so what the huge future holds for us? Obviously, we are far beyond the point when, you know, people would have a couple of face tuning apps and a couple of filters that they would post on social media. Pretty much any of us can now take any picture, change the background, change the person on the picture, put extra text, and everything can be done on the phone. And I think like 5 years back, that would be just impossible. People would need lots of expensive hardware to do that. And we believe that the barriers of content creation will continue to decline with the help of AI. Look at what generative AI is able to do already. And actually, we believe that generative AI will be one of the main tools of driving and creating more experiences in metaverses. And so our role in that intersection is just we keep doing what we were doing, which is personalizing the experience and allowing the people to communicate more creatively within themselves and across multiple areas. And so we have already started thinking about, okay, what else we can do except for 2D, and how we can bring the digital personality into 3D and across multiple platforms. And so we're super excited about what future holds for us. And if you're as excited as us, feel free to reach out. We are happy to chat about the engaging content and how we can create it with the help of AI. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vadym. And I can tell, I don't want to tell too much, but we're really, really happy that you're so resilient as a company in the Ukraine, and we really stand with you guys, because we know that the developers during this project were some of them working in really, really hard conditions. Sometimes they didn't have energy, etc., and power. So keep on going. We're behind you. Yeah, and Lukas will tell a bit more about like what comes after we, or how did we like come to this final product.
So we have an amazing partner now with Reface, and all our previous AI troubles are now solved, which was amazing that we found them and we worked with them. So, but we have one thing with AI and face swaps: you have to take a picture. So what was very important for us, and also, of course, BMW, is data privacy. This we wanted to address first. All the pictures you take in the BMW world are stored on servers in the EU, and only after the phase, after Vadym told you how it will be averaged and calculated, only those numerics will be sent to the US and then processed there, sent back to the BMW world, and then implemented by us. So, and also deleted after 48 hours. So data privacy is also sorted in this context. But yeah, now we have a picture, we have a video what is mostly finished, and we have a problem. How do we create a real-time compositing and integrate the face swap into the main video? Because this needs to happen in real time, as we defined in a few slides before. So this is our starting point. This is the image that comes out after we have done compositing. So the pre-compositing before the face swap. This is the video that plays in the background. And now, and this is really, really big. And face swapping before was made for phones and social media cases, as Vadym told before. But now we have it to bring it on a very big scene. And so we were tasked, how do we get the best face swap we can get? And also at the same time, Reface developed something called the upscaled model, which they were graciously providing to us and sometimes a bit co-developing with us. So we were very happy that we can use it and optimize our face swaps. So we had to maximize it, and we isolated the face. This will look a bit strange because it's only the face moving in the scene, but stationized. And also we extracted the 3D position it would have had, but it's not moving. Also, another task was to distribute our shots for faster swap times, because we can't let the user in the BMW world wait a bit, or also, yeah, we wanted to have them their MegaMe very, very fast, and also it is even faster now than in the beginning. And so we created 4 different shots, and they were exactly timed for the face swap moments. So the video plays back in the, but you can only see the face swap videos when it's needed. And yeah, with the face sorted and Reface there, we did a lot of testing. So we created face swap after face swap. So yeah. Yeah, but now we have to bring all the pieces together, not just the face swaps, but now to integrate it back into our main video, and this in real time. Yeah, a 3D video is made out of different layers. This is done before the face swap. And then we have this. This is Touch Designer. It's a real-time software, a real-time environment, where we play back the main video and layer over our face swaps we get back from Reface and do some real-time compositing. And I'd like to show you a few noteworthy stuff in there. So here we can see in the bottom left is the video we will get back from Reface. And if you remember, we also extracted the 3D data as pure text file, and this comes in from the top. And in simulating a virtual camera, we can place the face in the exact same location it would have been in the main video. So after this is placed in there, and also a few minor tweaks with color correction and stuff, this is what you get. This is your own very big MegaMe. And yeah, this is something that is now playing back in nearly real time. So I'd like to show you the full run, and yeah, please enjoy.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to the complete team. Like the project was stopped in between because it was like BMW had to think about it, and then it took nearly a year, and like so many people of us were working on that, and we're really happy that it finally made it into the BMW world. And we calculated, we say like, yeah, normally they don't interact so much. They've like, if we have 30 swaps a day would be nice. But now, as we see in the numbers, we have nearly up to 150 swaps per day, which is really, really nice for us. And it's nice that people take it on. And of course, they agreed to a legal text before. Yeah, that was like basically the main talks. And before we start into the discussion round, hopefully you have some questions like to all of us, or like you can ask yourself too. We can have, I wanted to have Alisa, she's coming here because she can tell you about what you can see next door basically in the lab. Because we prepared.
Yes, so here you can see an immersive installation we have set up for you in our studio next door. So after all these great talks and the following discussion, please feel free to join Yanni and me, and we will explain a bit more about this project. So basically, the idea behind it is to tackle the problem of online hate speech, and together with the help of AI, the hate is transformed into something really beautiful and kind of art piece. Yes, but more you will find out when you come to the studio.
Okay, thank you. I think we can like switch on the light again, so, and I can plug in a second microphone theoretically. So are there any questions to the speakers? Just go ahead and ask.
Like 10 years ago, you would have done it in animation, drawn everything by yourself, probably. Have you ever thought of that, or have you totally disconnected from that? And how came your style to life?
Yeah, that's a really good question. But I think also something we didn't mention is that there was a lot of our own creative process involved, and also a lot of actually sketching. So what Laura was showing you is that with the images, we kind of guided the composition, but we could also do that with sketches, 3D renders. Anything which actually has a visual representation of something. And that is really interesting also in the process, because you're going back to the basics actually, and drawing or creating something in grayscale, for example, with a little bit of light information, and guiding the composition that way. And then on top of that, you enhance it with your text prompt. So it's a really good question, but it's really still involved in the process, I would say. Laura, anything to add?
No, I agree.
I think there was another question there, right? There's something. No, I mean from you in the end. Like, no. I hope I answered your question.
When I listened to the legal aspects, I would be interested how you would interpret it to the work of the to women, because as I understood it, you trained, or you created your own model, you trained it with your own images, and did I get this right?
Partly. So we trained a generative adversarial network, and we used text to image. We used pre-trained networks that were trained on the Lion 5B dataset. And of course, we don't consider what's coming out as a collage. So we think that there's a different legal ground. We used artists that already died in our text prompts, and we really tried to elaborate the text prompts with all kind of different fine tuning that we have. We would be open to explore the legal grounds of it as well. So it's partly true. It's a very gray area.
I was very interested. I know no legal advice, but I would be interested what Oliver said to seeing this case.
Let me answer this one first, and I'd love to get back to that as well. So first of all, I mean, I think you can see from the amount of work that you put into that, from what you describe right now, that you trained it to get a certain output. So that is very close to a toolkit, I would say, using the AI to generate something you want. So you're coming from the input, but you also want a certain output, and at least that shows the creativity behind it. again, it's difficult to say when the copyright starts. So how much input you have to give to make it a tool only. But I think it also became clear from my example earlier, if you just use one very simple prompt, the likelihood of getting someone else's image is rather high. And if you throw many things into the blender, then the output will simply not identify individual pieces anymore, maybe. And that will be the same thing as you just mentioned. I just picked that up, that example, a collage, for example, or a pastiche or something like that, an interpretation. If you just have a collage consisting of the original, that's just one piece using a collage, but obviously that's not what the legislator wanted. And when they created a paragraph allowing that, if you take already two, then it already depends which is the dominant part. If you take a couple of thousand or millions or billions, then it's maybe still a collage, but at least it is added with different mechanisms, and it's just the juice of the picture, not the picture anymore, which means the further away you get, the more it becomes your own, maybe, and depending on how the legislator will interpret the toolkit question, which is not yet clear, and the courts, it may become your creation and your work. That's what I at least would assume.
So, Oliver, have you looked at the changing terms already, and what is your opinion?
Yeah, I have. They're the same that we saw before. They're using the same terms and conditions for DALL-E and for ChatGPT. So whatever was said before does also count for ChatGPT, which is interesting because it's a completely different output. It's much more something that you could immediately use. Very often DALL-E results do not resemble automatically reality, as you can see, like if you see limbs, for example, or faces, or even logos or text, that will be kind of not really realistic. When it comes to ChatGPT, the result is a completely realistic text that you can immediately use, but it's the same terms and conditions for now.
And just a question, like when we have this title, like co-working and no-working, who's afraid of losing his or her job? Any thoughts on that, or like any thoughts that you just made up, basically? How will you deal with that technology?
My personal opinion on the AI in our workflows is that I think it will help out immensely to automate the more time-consuming tasks in future projects. For example, like right now already for a lot of bigger projects, environments are generated procedurally. Like you don't put every tree manually, it just gets put there by the program. And I think like this can be on a way bigger scale with AI. Like, for example, like you have hair, you just generate every hair strand that they work correctly immediately and stuff like this. And I think it will just enable us to be more creative and be able to iterate way more in the early stages because the production phases get cut shorter. So I think the job will change, but I don't think they will go away. We simply have to adapt. And that's very exciting, in my opinion.
Thank you, Thomas.
Yeah, maybe the idea of using AI is on the switch from creating stuff to curating stuff. So as we said today, the AI does not have an intention of pushing things to a certain extent or being somewhere having a certain outcome, but the human input normally in choosing the right output is the creative height. I don't know if that's the English word for it, but or if there is a certain copyright infringement, if you pick the right one, if you generate 10 texts and you choose one, then I think the creative output is that you chose that one and not the creation of the text itself. So maybe that's maybe that this is the social impact that the internet with all the overwhelming data has on us. So it's about selection and not about creation or being stuff available. So maybe this is just another symptom.
we're going to sort creativity the whole day, left, right.
Sorry. Last week I've been to a talk by Markus Necker. I don't know if he's in here. Hey, hi, nice to see you again. So it was very interesting because it was a very short talk within the Creative Mornings talk about AI and how you can use these tools. So right now they're looking for people that can teach AI. So I think the most important thing is that you can, I don't know, text things that create the result you want to use. And I think the risk is that people that are into texting things, so for example, concept and copywriting, that they probably get less jobs, because I'm not a text guy or girl, but I think that the AI is very clever. So within minutes, it can create a lot of concepts or claims or else. So what would take you a day or else, AI can create this within half an hour. So I think it's a very risk business for text people out there, not because AI can totally replace it, but it's faster. So I think that's the risk of using it. But regarding designs, I think it really needs to be more advanced. I think it couldn't replace any designer or 3D visual artist or else, because it still looks so generated and so replaceable. So I think there's no individualism in it, but creating a claim or a rough concept, it's pretty fast. That's my opinion.
I think that's one big thing in the text too, that that you don't really know, is it true or not. Actually, we tested it with Ada when where we tried to do in ChatGPT kind of a little thesis on I think die Brandstifter, so that she doesn't have to do it. And a beautiful text came out, and then she said like, yeah, but it's completely wrong. But it reads correctly. Of course, it's like early stages, but like it will be, I think, a big thing if you have generated text. Like, how do you prove that it's true, basically, or the facts are true?
But I guess it's the same as with DALL-E, that if you ask for a picture of a bird, then you get some bird. And if you don't give it enough information on what the text should be, then it probably, well, makes up stuff that it's not really on track.
Yeah, I can give you another example. So I prompted make a picture of anything, any style. And then you could say, well, if it comes up with whatever, that's a creation of the AI because it has no input. And the output was really very interesting because it was 4 completely different pictures, but all were photorealistic, very, I think, high quality artistic pictures, looked like real life photographies. And I'm pretty sure that they were, because they were just too good to be from out of thin air. It didn't make any sense. There was absolutely nothing that they could have as a reference point. So that's one example I want to give you. But something else, I think if we understand these AI tools today, just like nature or something you don't control as a human, then maybe it helps you to understand that it can, in fact, be you, the creative person, that triggers output. So the question is, where am I? How do I start? And what do I want to get out? And if I get out close to what I wanted to get out, then I get the result that I wanted. So it's the closer I get to the output that I wanted through my input, the more I'm the creator, maybe something like that. And just imagine a situation where you as an artist go to the ocean and put something in the sand and wait that the waves come over the paper or over the canvas, and it creates some sort of a pattern, for example. I think everyone would say, well, certainly that's a very clever idea. That's an artist. Someone did that. It was an idea. They went there, they put it at a certain stage, they waited for the right waves to come, maybe sand or whatever is in there. And if you imagine that these DALL-Es and Midjourneys are maybe something like the nature that just gives random input, a little more specific, not so random, but at least you want them to do something. So you trigger what comes out of it. And maybe that is a part of a creation that makes it obvious that it cannot simply be someone else's work. It's also you doing something.
Just two cents to that, also to the text creation. I think that was also one of the topics we had in our movie, that of course it's really fast, for example, creating and generating something, but it doesn't know what it is. You know, it doesn't understand it. And I think that's the biggest part. So only in collaboration, there's some meaning to it, some sense for you, for example. So that's just something I wanted to mention, and also connect back to the topic we had in our short film.
I think we had that before in our ADC session, that we really said, like, we expect kind of 2023 a really kind of exciting year, because it's going lightning fast. But I think we shouldn't be too stressed out, and just like take and use it and play and whatever, and enjoy like what we can do now. So I think that's we're really kind of looking forward what guys like Vadym and Reface and all these companies like are gonna develop. Yeah, if there are no more questions or urgent questions, or from the metaverse or something like that questions, I think we can close kind of that part and go over to drinking, eating, and as we said, go over and try out the Unhate experience. It's nice, and Yanni can tell a lot about that, and Alisa too. And actually, in this project, when we were searching Unhate, we were collaborating with a university who like really filtering Unhate for years now, but with AI actually, but still. Especially Alisa and the team, they had to manually select hate speech that can be brought into images because the AI couldn't filter it in a way, because like, as we said, perhaps there's no direction. It's just like spitting stuff out. It does not know where it wants to go, like in several steps. Yeah, and that's, I think, a very interesting part about that project. Yeah. Questions? Last questions? Last chance? No? Good. So we say hi to bye to the Metaverse. Bye bye. Tschö. Wollen Sie alle beenden? Thank you very much. Thank you very much.